and I welcome you again to the Kiss Corner. If you are joining me for the first time, I want to give you just a little bit of background. The Kiss Corner was created as a safe space for people, women, but if men are joining, then we're cool, or however you identify, who are joining, who have just left non-serving toxic relationships, right? And are ready to put in the work to elevate to higher versions of themselves, right? To make that change, to take that pivot from what you were in surviving that relationship to who you now are ready to become and thriving afterwards. And so essentially that is the cornerstone of the Kiss Corner. So if you are joining me on YouTube, you're looking at us through the Empowered Voices Network with PJ Jones, the ever fabulous, and thank you so much. So go ahead, please like, subscribe, comment, and share. If you are joining on my Facebook Live page at Cassandra Williams Facebook, again, please feel free to comment, give me those likes, those loves, those shares. That's what helps to shift the algorithm in both platforms to keep us pushing and moving so that we can reach out to at least one. Right? At least one soul who can resonate and get something positive to help them move forward as we share events and learnings from our lives and offer availability for coaching with us here. So, all of that being said, we're going to go ahead and get started into tonight's program. So, title for tonight is Conversations with a Wall. Conversations with a Wall, the confirmation call. Yeah, I'm cracking myself up on that one. I'm like, conversations with a wall. Yeah, that's what it felt like. So, oh God. Um, this truly is for anyone, but again, particularly any woman who needs clarity, confirmation, and emotional truth in where you stand and in who you are, right? And so I'm going to share through my own story where we all are and where we can be within that realm. So, without any further ado, let me get into it, right? So, conversations with a wall, the confirmation call, and I tagged it as he asked for the truth, then hung up on it. This wasn't closure, it was confirmation. What do I mean? So, yesterday, and again, I keep saying, like, you know, I really do plan what I want to say, and then life is life and things are happening, and I feel like I have to speak to things in real time, right? And so to be the most authentic about it. And so yesterday, last night about this time actually, I wanted to have what I thought I was, well, let me back it up. I thought I was being asked to have, let me put it that way, um, a real grown conversation. But I ended up talking to a wall dressed up as a man. And so, what do I mean, right? Have you ever reached out with the purest intentions with someone, just wanting to share a moment of joy, right? And then walk away feeling like you have been hit with a wave of emotional whiplash? Yeah, that's what happened. That's how I felt. Like I said, about 24 hours ago. And of course, since then, I've had time to really think about it and let it marinate, if you will, in a lot of different ways. And so, essentially, what happened was I was making some calls. And so I saw that my ex, my children's father, had called me. And I was like, let me wrap this up and I'll give him a call back. And I was pretty excited to call back. I was actually going to call him. And that was just because I was excited to share. I was having a conversation with our youngest daughter, and she's 6 years old, and she said something funny. And it was really cute and what have you. And it was in regards, she made a statement in regards to him and her commentary, right? And so that should have been the whole call, right? That was my full intention. And instead it turned into something else entirely. He asked me, I mean, I did get a chance to share it, and he was kind of like, haha. Uh, and he asked me, why did you leave the way you did and take the kids? Now, if you haven't read or heard any part of my fairly recent story, um, in short, I left our relationship. We have been together for 16 years, and I have now been gone almost 2 years. And so, again, the question was, why did you leave the way you did and take the kids? Then the follow up, get this, the follow up question was it because we weren't having sex that often? Then the follow up to that, he says, was that was the only thing that makes sense to me. So let me put it all together. Why did you leave the way you did and take the kids? Was it because we weren't having sex that often? Because that's the only thing that makes sense to me. Okay. 16 years, 3 kids, 5 pregnancies. But it all boiled down to, well, we weren't having sex enough. And so that must have been your reason for leaving. Okay. And so I told him, again, because we sort of, I think, sort of kind of had this conversation over within the last 2 years, but not really a full on, like, can we sit down and really talk about this? And I said to him, listen, if you're open to really having a conversation, I'm cool with that, but I don't want to turn this into a back and forth or whatever. But I'm cool with, if you feel like you really don't know and now you want to know, then let's discuss it. And he said something to that effect on his end as well. Um, so when he came about this whole sex thing, I told him, there was a hell of a lot more to it than that. And then he did begin to admit that he knew that there had come a point where he had gone cold. He admitted that he was simply just coming home from work, take a shower, eat, and go to bed. Um, and within that, though, sometimes, and this is my part of filling in, he would go to bed, but his way of soothing himself or making sure he could ease into a nice night's sleep would be to bend back that elbow and take a little something to drink along with it. Okay. So for a long time, I had been ignored in that regard. Like literally, when he said I would come home, shower, eat, drink a little something, watch TV, go to sleep. That's exactly what he did. And so he did acknowledge that. And, and acknowledge too that he had done so for long stretches of time. And somehow, though, none of none of that and other things that went along with it seemed to make sense to him, other than this breakdown of just, whittling it all down to sex. And so it took, not that it took this one call, because again, we have 3 young children. And so we've spoken over the time that I've been gone. But this, because it was the first time that he seemingly, like, soberly and genuinely asked the question, This call then was the one to remind me that I left for a reason, right? And if I'd stayed, I might not be here to tell the story, at least not in this way. And what do I mean? I'm going to come to that. As we were talking, he then begins to go in with this whole, well, you left a good job and you left a well paying, stable career and a loving home, and you just up and left with the kids. Excuse me? A loving home? Y'all, what? So, and I began to kind of question that, right? Not kind of, I questioned it. I challenged it outright. You mean to tell me the same place where I was called out of my name, where the kids heard their father scream insults at their mother, where I felt unsafe, many times unheard and unseen, where we're physically fighting in the household at times, where the police are coming through to tell one of us that we have to leave out of this home that doesn't even fully belong to us, like we didn't own the house. You mean that? You know, like, okay, that was the loving home that we were in. And let's be clear, like, love does not look like manipulation. It doesn't look like violence. It doesn't look like dismissal. And it doesn't look like emotional starvation. And so, what he called loving was really survival mode dressed up to look like stability. Mm. And I was losing myself in it. I really was. And in a nutshell, right? That's why I left. But he wanted to have this deep talk, and he asked the question. And so I opened the door, thinking again. My caveat, my precursor to it all was, hey, if we can have an open, honest, conversation, I'm willing. And of course, right as I started to unpack the truth, he tells me, it's getting later. I want to run to the store, and I want to make sure I check out the Knicks game. Mm. I'm like, yeah, you open up this conversation for us to be able to talk about what you said is what you didn't understand about my leaving and taking the kids and leaving all of this so-called stabilities, right? And yet when we get into it, as I'm beginning to explain, my truth of it, now you need to go and watch a basketball game. Hmm. And I don't know about you, but I can't stand being dismissed. I don't like it. And because it feels like to me like something that you do to a dog, like scram, scram, get down, shoot, get out, like I don't know. There's something that just irks me about that feeling, right, of being just completely dismissed, as if all the things that you said beforehand meant nothing, right? And so that's when I realized, right, for real, he didn't want understanding and he didn't want truth, because he even started saying, like, well, that's the way you saw it and that was your truth. Now, don't get me wrong, I understand between our three kids and the two of us, I've always said you can speak to any one of us, right? And of course, you're going to get five different versions of any and everything that happened in that household and the why and the whole. You're going to get five different versions of it, right? Because everybody's going to tell it, of course, from their own perspective, based on their own feelings, all of that. So all of that is going to happen, and that's cool. But for him to sit there and then begin to try to say, like, oh, well, that's just how you saw it. That's just how you, yeah, mm-mm, mm-mm, mm-mm. He didn't want truth. He didn't want truth. He wanted relief and release, right? From guilt, from accountability, from a version of the story where he might be the one who caused the harm, right? So he didn't want to admit any of that. But he remembered every time that I reacted in pain because he made sure to bring that up, right? But none of the pain that caused the reaction. So he brought up a moment from some years ago, maybe about 4 or 5 years ago. Um, and we were in a heated argument. I don't even remember about what, to be perfectly honest. But he walked out of the house again because he was good for just, well, I'm going to pack up and I'm going to leave and let you see how it feels. Okay. But we were arguing and we had a balcony. And I stepped out on the balcony and I could see him walking out of the house. And we were still yelling back and forth, and the kids were behind me. And I yelled something extremely personal and humiliating about him from our balcony, right? About his personal performance, if you will. Hmm. But he conveniently forgot that that insult, because he said I was embarrassed and I felt like you went for the you went for the jugular, like you were trying to really hurt me. And I said, you're right. I did say it for those reasons. I did. But I also had to clarify, you're trying to paint this picture as though I just one day got up and as you were casually walking out of the door, minding your business, I had nothing better to do with my life or time than to say, hey, kids, come follow along with me. Stay right there. And then I stepped out on the balcony and yelled these things, and you clutched your pearls. That is not at all what happened. Right? And so, like I said, he conveniently forgot as I brought it back up that it came after he screamed out in the midst of this same neighborhood, because it's the neighbors heard and everybody, and I didn't understand. And what were you trying to prove? And da, 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 da. No, I'm trying to prove that if you can stand outside of our house with everybody you say in the neighborhood watching, because I don't even know y'all, I'm looking at you, you in an argument with me. I'm not paying attention to who's around. You yelled up and called me a fat bitch. So yeah, I wanted to yell back something that I knew was going to sting you to the core, just like that stung me at my core. And I said that. So, of course, nah, now, mind you, over time, I apologized. I did, because I knew why I did it. But last night, as I began to bring up, you needed examples and of why it was that I decided to leave. And that's okay. So now you want to bring up this piece about how you feel so embarrassed and all of this stuff. Well, okay, well, let me explain this one more time. I'm telling you, I did it in response. And this is the part that was not caught. This is the disconnect. This is the part that is not, it's like, "Oh, no, no, that didn't happen. You just said it, and it hurt my feelings," essentially. Yeah, because I was hurt. He remembered being hurt, but not hurting me. And there are many, many instances, unfortunately, where it was just the same. He could remember being or feeling hurt, but not remember that there was a hurt that was put upon me first. I'm not necessarily saying that this was right, right, or anything like that. I'm just giving you the truth. And so I told him something that I had never said out loud before. And I'm going to admit, y'all, like I was, as you can see, I'm in because I'm like, are you serious? You have no idea you couldn't figure this out. And so, in short, I said to him, had I stayed any longer, I know this would not have worked out well for me or for you. Multiple reasons, right? I said, the last fight we had, I said, did you remember? Yeah, I remember. Okay. The last fight we had, I told the police officers because they were playing in my face too. If you all don't do something, or you just want to sit here and just lay fluff to everything, you'll come back and you might need a body bag and it won't be for me. That's where I was. And I told him this last night. And you know what that was met with? Disregard. Yeah, well, I gotta go. I'm not going to be goaded into an argument. Mm. I'm not going to be goaded into an argument because, okay, I got my answer. And he hung up. Hung up on me because he got his answer. Well, you know what? I got my answer too. I got an answer that I knew, but was most definitely confirmed. And so after that call, what I realized though was that I started stress eating. I've been working on my health and wellness, and I've been doing pretty well. I'm not going to act like it's been perfect. But last night I started stress eating. I had a donut, I had 2 bags of chips. And this was me setting up to go to bed, and I don't even eat like that, but I knew. And I caught myself in the moment realizing that that old habit of self-soothing was showing up again. You know? It was like my body recognized the danger even if my mind tried to pretend that it was fine. And I was going back. And so I had to sit with that because even now, even with therapy and with distance and with the growth, right? There was still this a bit of my core that could be shaken, in realizing that no matter what I say, like finalizing it, because I knew it, y'all. I knew it. But coming to finalize that no matter what I say, no matter what I do, no matter what proof I have, and I have, when I say proof, I still have documents from courts and police reports and all this stuff. And it's still met with accusations, with, well, this never happened. I didn't falsify these documents. But you understand what I'm saying? It's coming with the nonsense. It's coming with, like I said, that lack of accountability. It's coming with this victimhood mentality. And I left all of that. I had reached my breaking point with it and I left it. And so that conversation, in as much as I called myself trying to go into it thinking that it was going to bring some level of closure through an adult conversation, Don't ask me why I wanted to believe that. But the conversation was not closure, it was confirmation. It was confirmation that I knew, that I was never crazy. It was confirmation that emotional neglect is real. Confirmation that I don't need someone else's validation to know my truth. And again, I knew this. This isn't like I'm saying like I never knew it. I never even felt like I needed him to validate my feelings. I just felt like, well, maybe I did. Because I felt like no matter what I said, it was just this whirlwind that the truth it was just like I was being made to be the liar, you know? Have you ever had that before where you are telling what you know is the full truth? Nobody else in the room but the two of you in space in between. And still, you recount it. And it's not like there's some slight variation. It's like it was a whole different world, you know? And it's frustrating. It was frustrating. And I realized I started moving back into that realm of frustration last night. Had to let that go. Mm-mm. Come too far. And I bet you somebody out there, you have also come too far. And whatever you stand in your relationship, right? That toxicity of having somebody always trying to flip the script and live in their own victimhood mentality when you know you stood up and did your best. Were you perfect? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Nobody is. But was it the story that's trying to be conveyed back to you? It wasn't that either. And so when you feel like the truth, or at least your truth, right, just can't come out and be heard or be accepted or just, and that's why I said, I guess I am in a way saying this word validation. But there is no, my business coach used to tell us all the time, validation is for parking. And so I guess sometimes you just want that level up that you want that I'm sorry, right? You want the acknowledgement that it happened from the person, and you talking to the person who you thought loved you, and this is what you get. And so I know I'm not the only one. And so here's what I know now for sure. When someone can't face what they did, they'll try to make you feel like your memory is the lie. When someone won't remember your pain, but remembers every moment you broke down in it, that's not someone you can reason with. And I had to come to that realization and say it and just make it plain. When someone rebrands your survival story as abandonment, you don't have to convince them otherwise. Right? Some people are just committed to misunderstanding you. Why? Because the truth of what they did would destroy the image that they so called built for themselves, even when that is a lie, right? But it's their truth. And so this is how I'm phrasing it. So what do? You let them keep their illusion. You let them keep their illusion because that's for them to deal with. That's their stuff. But as for you, as for me, what do we keep? Right? What do we keep? You keep your peace. You don't have to stay in spaces where you're forced to scream to be seen. You don't have to accept loving homes that make you sick. You don't have to relive trauma just to prove that it happened. And that was the sticking point for me last night. And so I'm going to say it again. You don't have to relive trauma to prove that it happened. Sometimes one painful call is all it takes to remind you. And if yours wasn't a call, maybe it's a conversation, maybe it's, something. It could be from the person, it could be from somebody related to them, or whatever the case may be. But all in all, it reminds you that you left for a reason, and that reason still stands. It still stands. And all the growth that you have done in the meantime, or whatever growth is still sitting before you, because we're never at an end point. Healing is healing, it is continuous. Growth is growth. It can be continuous unless we stagnate ourselves. And so it stands to reason, wherever you left or wherever you want to leave, that's it. And there's better on the other side. And all that other stuff, you have to let it go. This is the closure. You have the closure. The closure was your leaving. The closure is not their apology. It's not their acceptance. Especially when you know it will never come. Because did it ever come when you were in the relationship? So why do you think it's going to come afterwards? It's not. It's just not. Right? And so we have to be okay with that. And we have to be okay with ourselves. And then move forward. It's not pretty. It's not perfect. It's not going to always feel so great. And yes, you'll have moments where you feel like you going back into that thing. And that's why I said I felt myself going back. I saw things that I started to do that was pushing me back to where I was. We're not here to move backwards. We're here to move forward. So that's my story tonight to share. I hope that this resonated with at least one person. And either you are that person watching now, you're watching live, or you're watching in replay, or you know someone who's coming to mind for you. My friend, my girl so and so might get something out of this. Ooh, this sounds real similar. you know? So please go ahead and share. Because if it can help just one person to know that you're not crazy, no, you not. Yes, your truth is your truth. Yes, you know what you heard, you know what you felt, you know what you sensed. That can't be taken from you, and you don't have to prove it to anybody. What you have to do is move forward. So, I thank you so much for joining us this evening. Again, my name is Cassandra Williams, aka Coach Kiss. Mwah. I thank you for joining us here again on the Kiss Corner. Again, if you're on our YouTube channel with the Empowered Voices Network, please like, share, subscribe, comment, do all the things, right? And if you're checking me out on my Facebook page, Cassandra Williams, again, please give me those likes, those love, those cares, and feel free to tag a friend or to share in however you may. This was Conversations with the Wall, the confirmation call. through the Kiss Corner. My name is Cassandra Williams, aka Coach Kiss. Mwah. I hope to see you back again next week, next Thursday, same back time, same back station. And please, please, please continue to elevate as you move along your healing journey. Join us again next week. Thank you so very much, and good night.